Good day. We are back to an online learning, and today we are looking at strategy implementation. Now, after you have come up with your strategy, there is the need to implement it. So that is what we are going to look at today. So our objectives are to define what strategy implementation is, what it implies, questions it seeks to answer, and then we'll look at 5 different activities involved with strategy implementation. Now, what do we mean by strategy implementation? I've come up with some definitions that I found in the literature. One is the sum total of the activities and choices required for the execution of a strategic plan. So all that you are doing, as I said in the beginning, strategic, when you're taking everything strategic, you are looking at the long term. So the long term, what do you want to do? This is what I want to do. So you go through the stages to come up with a strategy of various activities that you need to do. So how do I ensure that if, for example, I want to be the market leader in 10 years, how do I do that? And you need to engage in various activities. So it is all activities that come under your strategy implementation, or processes by which strategies and policies are put into action through programs, budget, and procedures. Okay. So in all that strategy implementation is saying is that you have decided to do some things. What have you decided to do? You need to implement them. You need to put them into action. And that is what this lesson is about. So what does implementation imply? First, when you are implementing, you have to focus on efficiency, making sure that you use as little resources as that, and know that it is operational, so it is an ongoing thing, and it requires special motivation and leadership skills, and then also it requires coordination among many individuals and departments in the business. So it's not only just one person that will be doing it. Okay, marketing does their thing, HR does it, operation does it. All these things have to be coordinated. And then before you can coordinate them, you need to motivate them. And that motivation will come with a specific leadership skills that is dependent on the environment. Okay. As I told you, if you are dealing with a lecturers, it's different from if you are dealing with a market women. It's different. And then it is operational. So you need to put it into practice. And as you are putting it into practice, it's a human activity. You have to guard against waste. So that's where leader efficiency come in. Okay. Now, so what are some of the questions that implementation seeks to answer? One, who are the people to carry out the strategic plan? Various activities are to be undertaken. Who are those who do it? And then what must be done to align operations with new directions? So we want to increase growth, our growth rates. Okay, that is new. So what do we need to do? As I said, implementation is operational. So what are the operational things we need to put in place to make sure that we are able to grow? And then as we are putting in measures, there are various things. As I said in the earlier slide, you have to deal with many people in different departments. How do you ensure that they work efficiently so that you'll be able to grow? Because when you are growing, it's dependent on what is happening in the industry. So you can't just go, you have to be efficient. How do you ensure that? And it comes under coordination. Okay. Now, so what are the activities involved with strategic implementation? One is dependent, one first activity is you look at the communication of the plan. You also look at your implementation structure. You also look at implementation also comes with support policies, and then also it comes with allocation of resources, budgeting, and then also how do you ensure that the functions that needs to be done are discharged. So these are the 5 things that we'll be looking at. Okay. According to Nivy, he says that there are 5 whys. You have to consider some 5 whys when you are communicating a plan. So the 5 whys, what are they? You look at the who, the why, the what, the when, and the where. Who, why, what, when, and where. What does each one mean? If you are looking at the who, then you are looking at those people who will be involved with the implementation. Implementation calls for certain key people. So if you want to grow, for example, then you need the marketing, you need the HR, you need all those people. So those are the people you need to look at. You also need to look at the why and the what. That is the purpose or the message. Okay, it's important for staff to become aware of the objective behind implementing the plan. All that we are doing is to let them know what we are doing and why. We want to close down some of our departments. Why do we want to close down? We want to close down because we are not making enough revenue to pay them. So they will understand. So maybe then they can come in that, okay, don't close it. We are not, so we'll take half salary or whatever. Okay. You are letting them know why you are doing that. Okay. And then also you have to look at timing. Timing is everything in communication. If you give the right information at the wrong time, it's hopeless. And if you give the wrong information at the right time too, it's hopeless. So you need to be very, very cautious of the timing that you are giving the communication. Okay. So if you are unsure about if you are unsure about the amount of communication needed, it is always better to err on the side of too much. So if you don't know whether they've understood it or not, you have to give it. That's why advert and all those things. You do it. Then people listen, they hear, and automatically it becomes part of them. Okay. Coty said that without credible communication and a lot of it, employees' hearts and minds are never captured. So to capture somebody's heart, mind, soul, and everything, bombard him with information, bombard him. That's why at times people will say it, then it becomes what? The truth. It's because you've heard it. So it rings in your head. Okay. So that's what it means by looking at the communicating the strategic plan. Tell them, always be telling them, so that they become aware of what the business wants to do. And then the where and the how. Okay. Now, if you want to communicate, it takes a lot of efforts. Okay. So you need to, as I said, you need to repeat it. For employees to fully understand the strategies and the way in which they contribute to success, Kaplan has suggested that we have to give it to them in 7 times in 7 different ways. 7 times in 7 different ways. So what are some of the channels that we can use in order to tell them what we are doing? 7 times the 7 ways. You can use your brochures, you can use your speeches, you can use your newsletters, your videos, your website, your intranet, your workshop, internal blog post, whatever. So make sure that you give it to them 7 different times using 7 different means, not the same mean. And then note, communication is a two-way thing. So as you talk to them, make sure that you give them feedback and they also give you feedback so that you know whether what you are trying to carry across to them has been accepted. Now, another issue too you need to be looking at is the implementation structure. Okay, in businesses, okay, changes in corporate strategy leads to changes in organizational structure, how we do our things in the business. So, for example, the changes in strategy can lead to coming up with a new strategy, a new administrative problems also what will emerge. Okay, and then also economic performance might also have and decrease, and then new appropriate structure is invented. Okay, and then also profit returns to its previous level. Okay, so these are the things. You create a new strategy, it comes with problems because new strategy calls for new things. Okay, now once problems come in, then you expect that there will be decline. Okay, so once there is the decline, then you put in place the appropriate structure. Okay, once appropriate structure comes up, then you go back to your profit level and you make a return. Okay. Now, so what does it mean by implementing structure? When you are implementing, that's it, you look at implementing structure. Okay. Now, the structural setting of business determines how day-to-day operations are managed and run. Okay. So, as a business, you always need to come place with a structure, and that structure will inform what needs to be done daily, because it's the daily things that leads you to achieving the overall objective. Okay. Strategy and structure are separate. There's a difference between a strategy and then there's also the structure. The structure is how we do things. Okay. They are separate processes, but you have to bring them together. Strategy is different, structure is different, but they have to be together in order for efficiency, in order for objectives, in order for what we've planned of to be achieved. Okay, so the structure works with the strategy to reach end goals that are set by the business. Okay, business needs to decide on strategy to be used during the planning stage. So when you want to grow, how do you want to grow? You have to determine that. So we want to grow. We want to grow by going into a different market. We want to grow by adding products to more features to our product. We want to go by whatever. How do you want to grow? There are various means. So you determine how you want to grow right from the word go. So for example, if a business plans to use lowest cost strategy, the organizational structure should call for efficient production processes to achieve the goal. So for example, if you want to be cost leadership, you can't have a tall organizational structure because that will come with cost. So your strategy and your structure are different, but they should work together in order to allow you to achieve your goal. Okay, now let's look at some of the different structures that businesses have as they grow. You have the simple structure, the functional structure, the divisional structure, and the matrix structure. You've done this in MOB, so you understand it better. When you look at the simple structure, is that a one-man business, sort of the entrepreneurship type, okay? So here decision making is tightly controlled because it's the entrepreneur that decides what to be do. Okay, there's no formal structure he decides to do. So he can decide to recruit you in the morning and dismiss you in the evening. He can decide to combine that's his business. And then also planning are normally short range or short term, and then reactive. They're always looking at what people are doing and then they react to that, because normally they don't have enough money to go into market research and then the research and development. But they are very flexible and dynamic. Flexible because they can change at any time, dynamic because they are very fluid. Because they are flexible, so you tend to be very fluid. You can change anytime you want. Okay. And then go to the functional structure. The functional structure is where a seemingly formal structure has a function. What function means, what are you doing? So you have the marketing activity, the HR activity, all those are the functions. So here you have to put in place a management team, you have to have functional specialization. Here delegation of decision making has come in, because you don't, as a business owner, the CEO, you don't have all the expertise, so you have to fall on the expert, the functional. And then also concentration and specialization in the industry. So in the industry, you determine or you do one thing, you specialize in what you need to do. Then you come to the divisional structure. Okay, divisional structure has to do with product lines. Okay, so if you go to Unilever, you have their fats and oil, you have the beverages. If you go to Casapart, you have the alcohols and non-alcoholic, and then you also have the water, and now they've added hand sanitizer. So you see, these are all different divisions you are talking of. So because it's different divisions, decision making is decentralized. What is happening at Casapart hand sanitizer is different from what is happening in Casapart awake water. They are two different things. So decisions and things have to be done differently. And then it leads to the strategic business unit. These are the business units that needs to bring in money on their own. Okay. So once you have the divisional, you are likely to have SBUs. And then also, you can also look at metric structure. Okay, the metric structure is where you have a lot of businesses trying to use the same resources to be doing all things. So you can have somebody who is a marketer but then be doing the same work for fat and oils and at the same time doing it for the beverages. So a very good marketer at Kasapa will be doing the marketing issues for Awake and at the same time doing it for hand sanitizer. Okay, you've done all these things. Okay, and then also you've had the product and brands manager, and then you have the matured, you have the metrics one, and then you have the network structure. Okay, the network structure is where you really don't have physical structure, like what is happening now because of COVID. So everybody is working at home, so we are not there physically, but then we are working. Okay, so that is the network structure, and that's where you have the virtual organization concepts. Okay, so as we say, as literature say, you normally use it when the environment is unstable. Now everything is unstable. You don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, so you cannot just go and be building houses and all that. No, let people stay in their house and work. When as things become stable, then gradually we move out to go and do. And then there's so the issue with this is that you have problem when there's a need for innovation and quick response, because people, you call somebody is off. Okay, virtual, you call somebody is off. An issue had to be dealt with, but the person is not online for you to talk to. When the person in US is sleeping, the person in Ghana is awake. And all these things bring challenges with the implementation structure. Okay, and there are other activities you need to be looking at. One, you have to make sure that you establish a link or coordination mechanism between and among the various departments. There should be a reporting line so that if it is between marketing and accounting. Okay, at the same time, a structure should be built within the marketing department so that people will know who they have to report to. Okay, line of authority, span of control. You have an idea of this. And then you also have to formulate the work plan and procedures to be followed in the implementation of the strategy. How are we going to do it? The work plan. So if we want to grow, what are the stages we have to grow in 5 years? We are growing by 5. So we decide that every year we grow by 1%. How are we going to do that? That's the work plan. And then what procedures do we need to follow? All these things should be spelled out. And then determine the key managerial tasks and responsibility to be performed and the qualification needed. Okay? So we need to do this. Who needs to do this? What the job analysis and then the job specification comes in here. And then also assigning the task to the appropriate department of the business. Okay, who will do what? Depending on the structure of the business. For some business, their marketing and operations are together. For some, it is not. So depending on what you have will determine on who does what. And then also you need to look at your current staff strength, okay, to determine if you have enough manpower to help you achieve your goal. If they don't have it, then what do you need to do? Then you do the necessary action. Are you going to recruit? Are you going to train? Are you going to transfer? You do that. Okay, and then also once all these things are done, you make sure that you communicate what needs to be done to members. People need to be told what is going on. It makes things not it makes people understand better. It calms tempers and everything. Okay, so you look at what is happening with the COVID-19 issue. The president is always coming to talk. Virtually, most of the times, the same thing that they talk and then add a few things. The talking helps to calm tempers. It helps to stop rumor. And in business, if there are rumors, you are going to have problems. So you need to always, every stage, be communicating to them so that they get it from the horse's own mouth. Okay. And then also, as you are implementing, you also need support, okay? And the support comes in the way of policies, okay? Now, and procedures. So policies are broad guidelines for decision making that links the formulation of strategy with its implementation, okay? Policies are used to make sure that all employees make decisions and take action that support the business's mission, visions, objectives, and strategy. So in effect, you need policies and procedures to act as what guidelines as to what needs to be done at what time. Okay. Now, policies' role in strategy formulation. Why do you need policies? One, as we said, it promotes uniform handling of similar actions or activities and reduces frictions. So we know that if somebody comes in, this is what it has to do. If there is a problem, this is how you have to go. When you do that, it's better. Otherwise, today somebody will do that, the next time somebody will do that. No. So you need to put that policy in place. And then enhances quick decision making by standardizing answers to routine problem. Okay. And then empowers employees to act in standard ways. Okay. Because the policy tells you, for example, if this does not go on this, you have to do this, you have to shut it down, you have to put more, all those things are there. So it makes it easier for you to know what to do at what time. Okay. Now, what are some of the type of policies we have in business? So for a business, all the functional areas need policies, all of them. Okay. So the HR, okay, has policies in terms of how you conduct yourself, how you dress, privacy, medical reports, leave, and all other things that are associated with the conditions of service. Okay. So if you look at COVID-19, for example, Ghana Medical Association are not giving information or certain information because of what their policy of privacy, okay, of protecting the individuals. Okay, now that even they are protecting them, you see how we have even started stigmatizing people who are not sick, let alone if they give all the information where and all that. You can imagine the chaos we have. So for all these things, it's necessary to have policies so that it will guide what you need to be doing in the business. And then you have also the ICT policy. You know, ICT keeps information, so you need to know who is authorized to do what. So for example, if you see the ERP, for example, how can I access certain information you cannot access? Okay, because of what we are supposed to be doing. And the system, the policy is that you access only information that are relevant to you. Okay, so your level determines what you need to do. So it deals with authorization level. To what level can you go? It also deals with how do we deal with the old data in the system? How do we destroy them? How do we even put them in archives and all that? It is there. And then also we have the financial policies that relate to regulation, supervision, and oversight of the financial and payment system. We do all these things with a view of promoting financial stability, market efficiency, and client access and customer protection. We need to protect our client, the assets that they have with us, their names, their everything. And then also, so examples of this policy, how do our capital budgeting, what is it? Our capital structure, do we have more debt or equity or 50-50, whatever? And then our working capital, what are we looking at? If it is the cash ratio, current ratio. Okay, we look at the cash ratios, we look at current ratios. Okay, look at all those things. What does it do? The inventory. How do we turn it around? What do we need to loans when we are going for loans? What are some of the things that we look at? Okay, now, so if you're looking at the supporting aspect of the implementation, okay, another key supporting leg in strategy implementation is the culture. Culture means everything, what is right and what is wrong. Okay, and this involves the overall atmospheres within the business. Okay, so if you need implementation to be successful, then the business, you have to make sure that you put in place everything possible to make your employees feel that they are very important and they are very comfortable as they perform the roles you have assigned to them. Okay, you do this. Okay, this is supposed to be done by ensuring that, how do you make sure that they are important? How do you make sure that they are comfortable? One is to make sure that you involve them in what is going on. So one key thing is the communication. Okay. And then For example, so a culture of being responsible and accountable for one's action with corresponding incentives and sanctions for both good and bad behavior. So this is what you do, this is what you get. If you don't do it, this is what it does. So when you do that, you make sure that people see that the more, no contribution, no chop. So the more you contribute, the more you get it. That enhances performance. If you do it blanket, everybody know, you are going to make sure that certain people will not work at all, because they will know that whether I work or not, I will get it. So you need to do that. Okay. And then also another issue involved with support is the leadership that you have. Okay. Leadership is very, very critical when you are implementing policies, and such leadership should be proactive, it should be goal-oriented, and then also focus on creating and implementation of the vision or the strategies that needs to be done. So leadership is critical, because leadership has to influence what goes on. And when people don't see that they are proactive, you wait before everything come and say no, they will not have they will not believe in leadership. Okay. Other things that you need to be doing is to also put in place a performance tracking and monitoring system to see that whatever is done. So for example, you can have a situation where at the end of every day, the system will generate reports for management to look at what's happened. And you also look at performance management system. What do we do? This is a flat. When there's increase, this is flat for everybody. Then we look at each other's contribution and we give you more. And then also we put in place a system that will provide information and give feedback to everybody. And again, I say you need to communicate. You need to be telling people what is going on. Okay. And then also we come to the resource allocation and budgeting. Okay. Now, resources are important. Without resources, nothing can be done. Okay. So when you are looking at resource allocation, you are looking at processes which involves deciding on how much and where scarce resources should be used in the production of goods and services. We want to achieve something. We need to do that by looking at our production of our goods and services. And as you learned in economics, there is nothing like scarce resources are in abundance. No, resources are scarce. That's why it is important to have a proper way of making sure that scarce resources are allocated efficiently. Resources are allocated efficiently when it is not possible to produce one of a good without giving up the other. Okay? So you don't need to sacrifice this for the other. Then we say the resources are effective. Okay. And then also factors that should inform or that informs how resources are allocated. One, first is dependent on objectives. What does the strategy intends to achieve? And then also it depends on management preferences. If management thinks this is how we have to go, then that area will get more of the strategy. So for example, this COVID-19 comes, government says, no, stop. Now we need to go to construction of a lot of healthcare facilities. Maybe if left to another person, the person said, no, let's look at more of rows of houses. Okay. So depending on what management and preferences, we inform where we put a lot of the resources. Okay. And then also it looks at internal policies. Okay. Resources are internal. So internally, who has more power? The power you have will depend on how much you get in terms of resources. And then at times, so they do it just by lottery. They decide by random. All of them are important. So which one do you need? And then they do that. And then also in some places, it's determined by when management mean they vote. And then they decide that this is what we ought to do. And that is what we will do. Okay. And then we come to budgeting. Okay. Now, after you've decided on what you are doing, you need to budget for them. So we want to what we want to grow. We want to buy a car. We want to, all these things are important. So you need to budget for them. Okay. So when you are budgeting, all that you are doing is you are trying to predict what the costs will be and then try to find out how you are going to get the resources to achieve them. Okay. And then in producing anything. There are two types of costs you should be looking at, the direct and then the indirect. Okay, so the indirect are those costs which cannot be directly attributed to a single business activity. So for example, if a business buys a car, it's used by marketing, it's used by operations, it's used by finance, it's used by corporate, it's used by everybody. So it's a cost, so you share. When we put on electricity, it's for everybody. Security, for everybody. Water, we all use it at the same time. Depreciation of machine, everybody uses that, okay? When we train people, it's not purposely for just this, we train the front, receptions and that. It's not purposely for just one department, it's for all. So all these things are known as what? Indirect cost. And you, as a business, you should be able to identify what your indirect costs are and then work on it accordingly. And then also we have the direct costs. Okay. Whereas the indirect is not specific, direct is specific. So we want to expand our market. So we go and buy a car purposely to expand that market. That becomes indirect. We can buy two cars, one for general use and one purposely for this. For the general use will be indirect, but the same car bought for another purpose will be specific. Okay, so when looking at the specific, you look at some like personal cost, you look at salaries, health insurance, you look at the vehicle that has been bought. Okay, you also look at the consumables and supplies, so the papers, the pens and whatever. You should be able to, as I said, the same thing can be for direct and can be for what? Indirect. The difference is the indirect is for general and the direct is for specific. Okay, and as you do this, you also have to make sure that you maintain a system of checks and balances to monitor whether the departments are operating within their budgetary level. Okay, systems should be put in place so that people don't go overboard. Once people go overboard, they'll create problem for everybody. So make sure that they stay within their budgetary level. So once you have a system that is generating reports frequently, it helps you know what is going on. Okay. And then also we have discharge of function and activities. Okay. How do we ensure that the functions and things we want to do are really undertaken? So that is putting the strategy into action, aided by strategic leadership, utilizing participatory management and leadership styles. Okay, so you put your strategies into action. And what does it involve? Continuous engagement of personnel by providing training and reorientation. As you said, always telling them, reminding them, it helps. And then also enforce the applicable control measures in the performance of the task. Controls to make sure that what we are doing is meeting the standards, so that we don't have a whole lot of deviation. And then also, if there are, evaluate performance at every level and identify performance gaps to correct any deviation. You need to identify the deviation early before it becomes a problem. And so once you identify it, then you correct the deviation. Okay. So as you correct the deviation, it might come with two things. Either you may need to change your policies and structures, or you may have to continue with it. So thanks be to God if you are able to go on with it. But then if the gaps are just too huge, and as I said, gaps are based on what? Margin of errors, plus or minus, depending on what you set. So if you set 5%, and then you find your deviation to be 4%, there's no cause for alarm. But then once it goes above your threshold, then it tells you there is a need for you to look at. And then note, the information you get at this level, that's the strategy implementation level. That is what forms the input for the strategy evaluation. That's what we'll do next week. Okay. Now there is another model too that you can use when you are looking at the strategy implementation model. Okay. And this has 7 S's. So the 7 model strategy implementation. Okay. So according to this model, there are 7 factors, and those have been divided into 2 groups. The hard factor, that is the hard is and then the soft S. The hard S looks at the strategy, the structure, and the system, whilst the soft look at the styles, shared values, the staff, and then the skill. So the strategy, we are looking at just the strategy, the plan of the business to achieve competitive advantage and grow. So what strategy have you put in place? Then you come to the structure. What structures have you put in place? What supporting things have you put in place? Are you supposed to put in place in order to ensure that the strategy achieves the goals that is set out to be? Okay, so you can look at organizational structure, you can look at divisions, the units, the sections. How are they organized? Are they going to help you meet it? Just like the former one we discussed. And then you look at system. A system is a clear indication and guide on how the main activities or operations of a business are carried out. What systems have you put in place? The processes, producers, tasks, and flow of work make up the system of the businesses. So in effect, you can even put policies here. What systems are in place? How are we ensuring that what we need to be done are being done? Okay, so that makes up the three hard S's. Then you come to the soft S's. The soft, you look at the style, and let's address the management and leadership style. What leadership style in place? And what you said, it is better when you are implementing to have participatory, so that if people have problems, they can conveniently come to you and talk to you. Okay. And then also you have the shared value. This refers to the standard norms and generally accepted attitudes that ultimately spur members of the business to act or react in a certain situation. What are the shared values? What do we believe in? What are our norms? What are our core values? Normally, when you go to businesses, you have them all around. This is what we believe in. And that is what every member should be looking at. And then also we have the staff. The staff just look at the human resources we have. Do they have the capacity? If they don't have the capacity, what are we going to do to ensure that they have the capacity? Okay. So are we going to hire? Are we going to recruit? Are we going to select? Or we are going to train what we have now in order to ensure that they do what they are supposed to do to achieve the goals that the strategy intends to make. And then we also have to look at the skills. The skills refer to the skills they have, the competencies and capabilities, okay, that they have, that they should have as they are required in the implementation of the strategy. If you're expanding market, you need somebody with a good marketing skills, who can convince, who can build. Okay, so what skills? If we don't have, then we look at it. So are we training? Are we recruiting? Or we're even subletting that competence we don't have to a consultant to do that for us. So this is another way of also looking at the implementation. So we've looked at two different models, but you see that they all interact. Okay, now, so do you have any question for me? I'll meet you on Monday. For the Monday class, you'll be on Monday. And then for the Thursday class, I'll meet you at 6 on Thursday evening. And remember, stay at home. If you don't have anything doing outside, please stay at home. And whatever you want to do, if it is not very, very critical, please stay at home. Your family needs you. Ghana needs you more than anything. So please stay at home. All the best. Bye.